The video you're about to watch is a bit different than other videos that we have on our channel to date, but I think it's important and I wanted to share it with you guys because I also wanted to bring some awareness to our podcast called The Exodus Companies. All of the information is going to be linked down in the description. Give this a watch. Let us know in the comments what you think. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Exodus Companies podcast. My name is Jared. I'm the CEO and founder of the Exodus Companies. This is a movement from culture to build community. If you're listening to this podcast right now, my only objective on this Monday morning is to try to impact you in some small way, and I'm specifically going to be speaking to fathers who currently have children in their lives and future fathers who hope to have children. I know that on Mondays it can be hard for us because we're often driving to our jobs. We're often driving to the place that we're going to spend some of the most amounts of time in our lives at for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I know that oftentimes the jobs that we hold and the things that we do in our careers can feel like a prison sentence for us. But as men, we do it anyway. We go to that job. We provide for our families. It might break us down physically and emotionally, but we do it anyway because we are providers for our families. Now, I hope that listening to this podcast helps give you a different lens. I hope that our team can impact you in some way, shape, or form to ultimately forge a different kind of journey in your life where you can pursue purpose in your life. But I know that you might be in a phase right now where you're not the most fulfilled, where you're not the most driven, and you might even be questioning, am I a good father? I had an experience over the last couple of weeks where my 8-year-old son has been coming up to me and showing me a lot of affection. He has been telling me that I love you. He's been running out the door to my vehicle when I pull in from work. And I can't help but think that small things that I do in my life are leading to a young man that respects me and wants to be a lot like me. And I'm not professing to be the perfect father. And I know that some of you might not be experiencing that right now. But what I'm hoping to do is encourage you all and remind you that the same attention that you are giving your work and your job, and you're trying to provide for your family and be a good steward of your resources and your income, you need to be applying that same energy into your family. And I fall victim to that same trap where I just get sucked into the vortex of trying to provide for my family that I almost forget that my family's there. Now, obviously, I don't forget about my wife. I don't forget that I have children, but I can lose sight of the importance of being present in their life and what it means, especially to young men, what it means to have a father that can be a strong figure of a provider and a protector, and what that means to them to set that example. I can't explain how proud I was when my son started saying that he loved me when I came home or when I left in the morning, because it's a piece of manhood that we ultimately start to grow out of. Oftentimes, as we become an older adult, we still look to our fathers, but we end up kind of outgrowing what I'll call the baby phase of being a son, where those words might not be spoken word for word, but they might be said in different ways as he gets older. But it's my job right now to live a life that's an example for him to follow. Another little funny story with my boys that they've been doing a lot lately is watching the videos that we create at our various channels. And I come home and my boys are extremely excited to show me the little goofy videos they've been shooting on the iPad. They'll set the iPad up in the window, they'll grab their Nerf guns, they'll set up some targets, and Colin or Bennett will discuss the modifications of their Nerf gun. They'll talk about the distance that they're going to be shooting. Colin carries a Vertex EDC Ready Pack with his Nerf guns stuffed inside of it every single place we go. And I'm not doing anything crazy and I'm not doing anything perfect. I make a ton of mistakes with my kids. And I know that as they become young adults, they're going to look at me and say, man, Dad, some of the things that you did here, here, and here, they kind of left some scars. And we're all going to make mistakes. And I think sometimes we let those fears of mistakes or possibly our own upbringing limit our performance as a father and our ability to impact those around us and our children underneath us. But I want to encourage you. You don't have to be the perfect dad. You don't have to have the perfect past. You don't need to be an expert in communication. What you can do, though, is analyze your children and find out what drives them. Good example is I took my son overlanding and we talked in depth about that. I took Colin, my 4-year-old, overlanding. And what that did, that week of one-on-one time with him, is it allowed me to learn to understand who he is. How often are we actually looking at our kids and saying, who are you? Not in a weird way where we're trying to be psychologists, but in an understanding way. Each of our children is wired differently. My daughter is different than my sons, and my sons are each different from each other. And the way that they receive affection and feel loved is very different. It is our job as fathers to set the foundation for our family and ultimately guide our family forward. And if you have young boys, it's your duty as a man to teach them and bring them up into manhood. And sometimes I have to remind myself that is allowing my kids to have risks. Sometimes I play it way too safe with my boys, and I know that about myself. That comes out of my protector instincts, but it can also limit them as young men trying to learn about danger and taking calculated risks and being able to face fear. But you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have this toolkit of perfection to ultimately have an impact on your kids, but you do have to be able to listen. You have to be able to observe. You have to be able, just like me, to be able to say, I'm sorry when you screw up, because you will screw up. And again, I screw up all the time. I find myself often not feeling qualified to raise these young men, much like I've said on the podcast, where I don't feel qualified all the time to lead this business. But we do it anyway because we're men. We are men who still value what it means to be a real man. So this week, if you have children, I'm challenging you, analyze them, observe them, take a conscious effort to pour into them. Get home and focus on them. Learn how to pour into them in ways that they can receive. Learn how each of your children receives affection differently, what they value, how they like to be loved. I know that as men, it's often looked down upon to see the emotional side of things, and we like to push off emotional intelligence and become emotionally ignorant. The world doesn't value what it means to be a true man that is powerful and strong, but yet caring and compassionate and understands when it's time to flip either of those switches. But you can do that. I want to encourage you guys, be intentional with your family. Be intentional with your young boys, because ultimately our nation, our country, our culture needs more strong men being raised, because what we have around us is a collapse of the young men in our nation. And ultimately the responsibility of bringing up the next generation of young men falls on our shoulders and only our shoulders. Thank you for listening to the Exodus Companies podcast. Our mission is to create a new revival of culture through our podcast, media, and hard goods that we manufacture. We are far more than just a podcast of thoughts. We are creators of tangible goods made here in the United States. If you found value in the podcast episode, we simply ask that you pay it forward. You can do this in several different ways. You can subscribe to our podcast and leave our podcast a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our various YouTube channels. Be sure to follow us on Instagram as well. Our Instagram page is typically private, but we will be making it public for the month of March. That is a great opportunity for friends and families to check out what we are about and to see the message of cultural revival. After March, we will return the page to private to maintain the core group of the Exodus. The last way we will ask for support is by purchasing our products through our various businesses. We know that we are in economic hard times, so it is more important than ever to be putting your money wisely into businesses that are pouring back into the culture. Audit who you support and only support those who will fight for our nation, our rights, our people, and our culture. If you feel like we have done our part and you are blessed with excess, consider supporting us at our brands, TA Targets, Arcane Co., Lantern, and of course, here at the Exodus Companies. We have a special code that will work to save you 15% off of most of our products, now available for a very limited time. Use code EXODUS15 at checkout on our sites to save on select products. That code again is EXODUS15 at checkout. We thank you for sharing this podcast and paying it forward. We thank you for doing the legwork and the hard work inside of Culture and your community, and we are honored for you to be a part of this cultural exodus.